Hello guys, this is Pratik from TechieStop, and today in this video we'll be discussing Cosmos DB CRUD operations, and plus we'll be adding some application insight to the application which will do all the CRUD operations with the Cosmos DB. Right. So this will be a video which will have different parts to it. Like we'll go through Cosmos DB instance creation, some introductory part like we will be trying to create, what type of application we're trying to create, and we'll be implementing that application to do CRUD operation with that particular Cosmos DB instance. And then we'll be going through the Java code as well, like the Spring Boot application which we will create, what all implementation is required to do this type, all the CRUD operations with the Cosmos DB. And then we'll be executing all those operations via a REST client, which is Postman in our case, and also we'll be executing some JUnit test cases as well to simulate the same integration test which we will do via Postman. And lastly, then we'll add the application insights functionality to our application, and that is through the Azure application insights service, which is available from the Azure cloud provider. Right, so let's get started. So this will be the agenda for today's video. So first I'll describe what would be the problem statement, like what type of application we are trying to create, and then we'll also create a Cosmos DB instance in the Azure. Then I'll do a walkthrough of the project setup which I have done. So the Spring Boot application which will perform the CRUD operation with the Cosmos DB. So what all configurations are required to do that, I'll walk you through that. And then I have a Postman client, REST client, which is set up to perform all the CRUD operation on Cosmos DB via that Spring Boot application. So I'll walk you through that Postman setup as well, and then we'll see how that CRUD operation is done, what would be the outcome of all those CRUD operations. So we'll be doing it via the Postman as well as through the JUnit test cases. And lastly, we'll be adding some application insights to our application as well. Okay. So firstly, what's the problem statement, and then we'll move to the instance creation. So the problem statement is, so we'll be performing some CRUD operations on a customer entity. So we'll have a customer class which will have certain attributes like identifier, means a unique ID, first name, last name, contact number, and some list of addresses. And each address also will have attributes like address line 1, 2, 3, pin code, city, and state. So we'll have these two classes implemented in Java, and we'll be performing the CRUD operation on this entity. Like we'll be trying to create a new customer into the database. We'll also try to update some of the attributes related to that customer entity. We'll try to get all the customer or a customer with a particular ID, and lastly we'll also delete that customer. And all these operations will be done via a REST client, which is Postman. And I'll also try to simulate the same integration test via the JUnit as well. So this would be our application design. So we'll have a REST client which will send an HTTP request to a Spring Boot application. So all those APIs will be exposed via REST APIs will be exposed by a Spring Boot application, and which in turn will perform those CRUD operations on the Azure Cosmos DB. So now let's move to the Azure means I'll move to the portal, Azure portal where we'll be creating the Cosmos DB instance. So I have a free account in Azure, so you can also create a free account in Azure by providing a credit card. So so the free account have some services being available for first 12 months. So out of that I have a Cosmos DB. So this Cosmos DB will try to create an instance of this Cosmos DB now. So I have one instance already created, so we'll not be using it in our demo. We'll create a new one. So let's create one instance. So there are different types of APIs which are exposed, like Cosmos DB exposes a core SQL API as well, and someone who wants to work on MongoDB, so it also exposes a MongoDB API, Cassandra, then Azure Table, and then lastly is the graph database, which is Gremlin. So we'll be using SQL for our demo. So we'll create an SQL instance first. So we have an auto selected subscription, which is a free trial subscription, and then we have a resource group. We'll select the one which I've created with my name, which is Pratik, and then we'll give an account name, which is Cosmos ACC say 00. Okay, so you can give any unique name as you wish, but that is to be according to the naming conventions, and then we'll move to the global distribution. So we'll keep it as it is. We'll keep the defaults. Then networking, we'll also keep it same. In backup policy, we'll also keep all of them same, but just to have it locally redundant backup storage. I don't want geo redundant because this is for the demo purpose, so I don't want it to be geo redundant. I can have it as locally redundant. Then we'll move to encryption. It remains same. So we'll move to the last part, which is review and create. So it has validated all the options which I've selected successfully. So now I'll create it. So it has submitted the deployment of the instance. So I'll pause the video for a minute or so until it deploys that account, and I'll be back once it gets created. Okay, so now we have our Cosmos DB account created. Okay, so that was the first part of this video. So let's move to the second part. So the second part of the video is the Java SpringBoot project walkthrough. So let's move to the IDE. So this is the project which I've created. I'll go through each of the classes which are required to configure all the CRUD operations for the Cosmos DB. So let's start with the application one. So this is the main entry point of your Spring Boot application, and let's move to the controller first. So this is the controller class, basically, which exposes all your endpoints through which we'll be interacting with the customer Cosmos DB. And so this is the endpoint, the base endpoint, and so we have exposed all the methods, HTTP methods. So like post mapping we have done, so through which we'll be creating the new customer. Okay, so we have a repository class. We'll be going through that as well. So through that repository class we'll be saving the the new instance of the customer entity, and we'll be sending back a response saying that a new customer has been created. Then we have an method which updates the existing customer. So a customer having a particular ID, so we'll be updating the details which are related to that particular customer. So in the path, as a path variable, we'll have an ID, and then in the request body we'll have the entire customer entity details being passed as a JSON. And then we have a get method that getting the customer details of a particular ID. And we have a get method which will get all the customers which are there in that Cosmos DB. So that is the separate function for that. There is a separate function for having all the customers being returned as a response. And then lastly we have a delete functionality wherein we'll be deleting a customer with a particular ID from that Cosmos DB. So these all are the functions, or you can say the APIs being exposed to the REST client, through which we can perform different operations on the Cosmos DB. Then in the configuration part, let's move to the configuration folder. So we have distributed all the classes in their respective packages. So the controller will have the controller class, DTO will have all the data transfer objects like the customer CRUD response, so it will have your response structure. Then we have the model classes, so which is customer and address in our case. Then there's a repository class, and for the security purpose I've implemented the application security class, which basically removes the security part from any of the endpoints which we have exposed via this application, because we don't want those endpoints to be secured in any way for this demo purpose. And then in the resources folder I have an application properties file which contains all the application level properties, configurable properties. So firstly, the Cosmos CRUD app configuration class, basically this class is used to expose a Cosmos DB client through which this particular application will be interacting with the Cosmos DB. So we have a Cosmos client builder function which basically exposes a bean, and it basically creates a Cosmos client, and it also reads all the properties which are required to build a client from the application properties file. So the application properties file basically consists of all the URI, your database name, your primary key, your secondary key, and whether your query matrix is enabled or not. So these all are the parameters which are required by this configuration class to create your Cosmos DB client, right? So there are other functions as well, like we are trying to get the database name which will be customer DB in our case, and there is some function which is required for the response diagnostics, like basically how much time does your Cosmos DB take to return back the response to this application. So that will be processed through this function. So this was the app configuration class for a Cosmos DB. Then we have the Cosmos properties class, which basically is a class through which we are configuring all our attributes like URI key, secondary key, and query matrix enabled boolean variable. So all those properties which are mentioned in your application properties file will be read into this properties class, Cosmos properties class, and through this class, this app configuration class will be reading all the properties. So this properties object will be used to read all the properties which are configured in the application.properties class. So these two classes are for your Cosmos DB client creation, and this we have already done, which is the customer controller, which exposes all the endpoints. Then we have the customer CRUD response. So basically the structure of the response which will be sent back to the REST client. So we'll have a status code and a message about like what would be the whether there is a error response or a success response. So that message will be set accordingly, and status code also will be set to either 0 or a error response, error code. So for now we are just using it for the success scenarios only, wherein we'll be setting the status code as 0, and message would be a relevant message saying that a particular operation has been performed successfully. Then we have two model classes, which basically represents the entities on which we'll be performing all the CRUD operations. So firstly we'll have the customer entity, customer class, and it basically represents a container. So basically your customer DB, the Cosmos DB will have a container, will have a database, and in that database there is a container, and that container basically represents all your customers being stored in the Cosmos DB. So the container name is specified here, which will be the customer, and read units are being specified as 400. So how many read units we require to like for our application, like how much read and write would be done. So those are expressed through the read units, and we then specify the identifier, unique identifier, which will be a generated value. So it will be automatically generated, it need not to be provided by the REST client or any consumer which is consuming this application. Then we'll have the first name, last name. Last name would be used as a partition key, and then we have contact number, addresses. There will be a list of addresses which are registered with the customer. So this is for only for the demonstration purpose. Like I have to keep it as simple as possible. So I've used only few of the attributes which are registered with a particular customer. There can be other attributes as well which you can associate with a particular customer, but for now I've associated only first name, last name, contact number, and a list of addresses. Then we have the repository class, which basically extends your Cosmos repository, and customer is your entity, and a string value will be your ID value, and so it basically exposes your generic operations, like through which we can perform all the CRUD operations. But say if we want to expose custom operations as well, so we can do via, I've done it via add query annotation, through which we can get all the customers which are stored in that container or in the Cosmos DB. Then we have the application security class, which basically like ignores everything, like it doesn't checks for any security configuration in the request or security parameters in the request. So I've done it just for the simplicity purpose, like we will not be securing our application for now, and so that we can directly call the endpoint without sending any security parameters. Okay, so that was the application classes which are required for the Cosmos DB CRUD operation. And I do have a test class as well, the JUnit test class, which basically test all your CRUD operation. So I'll be going through this as well. So this was the second part of this video. So let's move to the third part of this video, which is the REST client setup and walkthrough. So before doing that, let me configure the application as well, so that we can start it, and then we can run through all the CRUD operations via the REST client. So in the first part of the video, we have created Cosmos DB. So let's move to the keys part of it. So this is the URI. So let me copy it and paste it in the application properties file, so which is your URI. Database, will keep it as customer, and then we'll copy the primary key. So you have this will be different in your case, because you'll be creating your own instance of the Cosmos DB account. So you need not to copy it as it is from this video. You can create your own instance, and you can copy the keys and the URI accordingly. So this is for the Cosmos DB. And so I forgot to mention and forgot to create an application insights instance as well. So let me create that as well in the Azure. So this is the application insight. So application insight service, basically it's a service through which we can look into what's happening inside our application, because when we link this service to our application, basically all the logs, the application logs which gets generated, that's being transferred, that's being sent to this particular service, and through this service we can view all the logs, what's happening inside the application, like how much time it is taking for each operation, and if we have to troubleshoot any exceptions, then we can do through the application insight service. So let's create one of the instance of this application insight. So subscription remains same. We create a resource group. Sorry, we'll select the existing one, which is Pratik, and I'll just give it a name. Okay, we'll keep everything default, and let's jump to review and create. So validation is fast, I'll just create it. So I'll pause the video till the time it gets created, and I'll be back once it is done. Okay, so we have our instance being created, and let's move to the overview section. So we are in the overview section, and the connection string, I'll copy it from here, and I'll paste it in the application insight.json file. So this JSON file is basically required by our application instance agent, which will be installed along with your application, and which will be, you can say, acts as a sidecar, and so it is an instance which gets deployed along with your application, and it will be keep on sending your application logs to the application insight instance inside Azure. Okay, and one more thing, the application insight agent jar is what I've downloaded, and I'll give you the link as well from where you can download this jar file. And in order to configure the application inside, I have to mention I'll just show you. I have to mention the arguments as well. So if you see here, so I mentioned as Java agent as a argument to the runtime. so that it can identify from where I have to fetch the application agents inside agent jar file. And this jar file, it's basically an application which sends all the application logs to the application insights instance which is there in the Azure, and through that instance you can just browse through all the application logs, and you can see where a particular exception has occurred or how much time it has taken to get a response from your DB instance, and how much time it has taken to send the response back to the consumer. So all those metrics are being forwarded to that application inside instance. So this is the configuration which we have to do for the application insights, for configuring the application inside your application. And we'll see like how it works and what all information it forwards it to the application inside service. Okay, so all the configuration has been done. So we have updated the application properties file with the URI, primary key and the secondary key, and our application inside JSON file with the connection string of the instance which we have created in the Azure. So let's start the application. It will take some time. Let it start. So the agent has started successfully. It is now starting the application. So your application has started now. You see the response diagnostic has also been configured now, so you can see how much time a particular query takes. So let's move to the REST client, which is Postman in our case. You can use any REST client of your choice, but I've used Postman. So I have created a Postman collection, and I have configured all the requests inside that collection. So let's create the customer first. So this is the simple request, JSON request containing all the attributes related to a particular customer. So we have a first name, last name, contact number and address, and this is the URI being exposed via our application. So let's execute the request. So if you see, we got a success response 201 created, and status code is 0, and message says a new customer has been created successfully with the particular ID. So just to confirm it, let's move to the Cosmos DB instance which we have created. So we are into our Cosmos DB account, and let's move to the data explorer section. So if you see here, we have a customer DB being created, and inside that we have a customer container, and that customer container will contain all your every customer instance as an item. So here you have your customer instance being created. So we have the details of that newly created customer, and this is the same ID which we see in our response. Okay, now so we have successfully created a new customer. Let's move to the second request, which is second operation, which is getting the details of the customer by an ID. So this is the endpoint which we have exposed. So we'll be passing the ID of that particular customer, a newly created customer. Let's execute it. See, the status is 200 OK, and we are successfully we are able to fetch the customer details. Okay, so that was the second operation, to get the customer details by providing ID of that particular customer. So third request would be, say we have to update the customer details, so we'll be passing the same ID, and here also we'll be passing the ID. And if you see here, the newly created customer had the contact details as 908766543 and it is same as same which is given here in the Cosmos DB account, Cosmos DB. And so let's update it with a different contact number. So it has successfully been updated, so we got a status saying 204, even though we don't have any response payload, but still we have a HTTP status saying that it has successfully been processed. Let's refresh it. So if you see, the contact number has been updated now. So that is how we update the customer details. The next one is like getting all the customer which are present in the customer container. So let's create a new customer again. So I'll just write some other name like Patrick. So let's create a new customer. So we have two customers now present in our container. Okay, so when we try to execute get all customer operation, so we'll be able to fetch, we're able to fetch both the customers. So this is how getting all the customers operation works. So the status is 200. Okay. Lastly, say we want to delete a particular customer, so we'll pass on the ID and we'll just execute it. So it says 204 and we'll just refresh it to see if it has actually deleted it. Yeah, you can see now we only have one customer present in the DB, and one has been deleted via this delete operation. So this is how we execute all the operations, and we saw that how we can do create, update, delete operation on the Cosmos DB via the SpringBoot application. Now let's switch to the JUnit part. So the same integration test I have configured via JUnits. So here also I'm trying to run a Spring application, and it will load the entire application context, and it will also start a web server on a random port, and that random port will be set. You can get the value of that particular port via this @local server port annotation. And this test REST template is a class which basically helps us simulate the REST client. So same in the same way we did it from the Postman, we can execute all those requests via the test REST template. So our first test is to create the customer. So basically we are creating a new customer. We created a new instance of this particular customer class, and we posted that customer into the database. So once that is being posted, we'll see that we receive the status code in the response as 0. So that is the assertion which we have put in. The second test would be to update the customer address, just to simulate whether we are able to update the customer successfully. So this is the same test res template object is used to get the object first, just to ensure that the addresses are null, because we are trying to get the same object which we have created in our first test, JUnit test. So for at present, so at this time the addresses would be null, so we assert that it is null, and then we try to update the customer address, and after updating the details we will again get the object and see if it has actually updated the address. So the address list would be of size 1 in that case, and your addresses would be not null. So that is how we test whether the update works perfectly fine or not. And the third test is to delete the customer. So after deleting the customer, we try to get the object. So when we try to get the object, will not have any customer with that particular ID. And lastly is to get all the customers. So we first try to post 3 customers into our DB, and then we try to get the object, get all the customers, and so the list of customers would be returned, and that list will be of length 3. So that is the assertion which we have put in. So let's execute all these test cases. So it is starting the application first, and then it is trying to execute all the test cases. Somehow the get all customer test case has failed. Let's see why it has failed. Okay, so yeah, we already had one customer present in the DB, so let's delete it first. Let's delete all of them first. Okay, let's execute it again. So this time all the test cases have passed successfully. So this is how we test our applications. We've tested it through the Postman, all worked well, and then we tested through the JUnit as well. So every test case has passed successfully. So the last section of this video would be to show how application insight works. So the configuration I've already discussed, like we would be installing the jar file related to the application insight agents, and we have configured the application insight JSON file with the connection string. So let's move to the application insight service inside the Azure and see what information it shows. This is the application insights. So first move to the application map. So this is our application map, and if you see, this is our instance, which is our application instance, and this is the Cosmos DB, which is being accessed via the application. So sorry, this is the app, the insights app service, and this is our application, and all the telemetry or the application logs have been sent to this insights app, and which also shows that a Cosmos DB instance have been accessed. Okay, so let's see the details, some of the details. So you can hover over any of the connections to see more details about how much operations have been performed, so what all operations have been performed, and how much time it has taken. So similarly for the app insights app also, we can see what all URLs or the APIs have been called, and how much duration, how much time it has taken. Then we have a transaction search part as well, so where we can see all the data in the last 24 hours. And if you see here, we have all the logs being sent from our application to this insights app, and so we have a dependency log, which is our Cosmos DB only, and we have trace logs, and we also have exception logs as well. So let me click on any of the logs. So it shows the end-to-end transaction details for that particular log. So these are the details which are associated with that particular log. So this is how means application insights will help you identify what's happening inside your application through, and you can create dashboards as well on your logs. So this is it from this video. Let me know how do you find this video, and we'll be back with a new video soon. Thank you.